There's been women in my groups that would say things like, I can do everything, but I can't feel anything. So that's the freeze. And one of the most common cues that I track in my body and in my clients, in my work, I do guide clients through, there's 4 distinctions, but interconnected phases. But it's not always linear. But the general flow, because it can look different for different people in different situations.
The reclaiming piece, I think, it can not necessarily be observed by us who are doing the healing work and doing those other phases. And it can start to happen. Yeah.
Or the other thing is there could be that inner sense of, I should keep going, or I should do this or that. And there's a tightness in the chest or the solar plexus with that.
Welcome to the Healing You Method podcast, where science meets the soul in the journey of healing and transformation. I'm the co-host, Gail Donahue, and in this episode, we're diving into the neurobiology of shutdown and how to gently reboot when you've been stuck in high-functioning survival mode. With Gloria Liebecker will be exploring subtle freeze patterns in high achievers, the 4-phase path from immobility to creative action, and the body signals that tell us stop pushing, pause, and discharge. So Gloria, please kick us off. How do we begin to recognize the subtle freeze or functional numbness in ourselves and in people who are otherwise doing all the things but still feel off inside?
Well, that's a really great question, Gail. What I often see, especially in high achieving women, is not the overt signs of shutdown, but a kind of a functional freeze it's really deeply masked by productivity. So they may look on from the outside. They're hitting their deadlines, they're caring for other people, they're showing up with a smile, but inside, they're really disconnected from their emotional world. So it shows up as a lack of joy, difficulty in making a decision, or just having a sense of going through the motions. There's been women in my groups that would say things like, I can do everything, but I can't feel anything. So that's the freeze. And one of the most common cues that I track in my body and in my clients is holding my breath, that shallow breathing, chest breathing. Or another big one is defaulting to fawning. Say yes to everything, even when your system's screaming, no. So I know, Gail, that you've worked with so many leaders that are navigating this pattern. How do you notice that functional freeze showing up in the body or in their language when they're high performers?
Oh, yeah, great question. One that's I found, more obvious, and now that I watch for it more, it just becomes clearer. And I can find myself doing it at times, is starting to speed up speaking.
I do that too. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And that's one. And then eyes darting a lot, like not able to hold a person's gaze very long, like they're, especially if they're in an environment that there could be distracting, they are not able to stay focused. They're hearing a noise over here, and so they're turning their head and eyes are darting over there. That's something too. And then just not able to relax, and their feet are tapping a lot. I don't know if you've
Yeah.
noticed that with people. I notice that sometimes if I'm in a coffee shop or something and I see people working on their computer and their legs are just jiggling, jiggle, 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 and they're
Yeah. Yeah.
stopping moving at all. Those are a few key ones that people might not think of noticing before. Yeah. How about you, Gloria?
Well, yeah, those are very, very, I don't know. I think about my grandchildren when you talk about the jiggling. I want to acknowledge that some people, they have a very high energy in their body. And it's not conscious, and it may not be an overactivation for some. When they're playing basketball, my twin grandsons, they're just like doing a dance the whole time while they're talking to the coach. So I don't want people to think that because they see movement that means they're activating.
Yeah.
So we're really focusing in on the high achieving women particularly and how this may show up, and it's really unconscious. So we're not bringing these up for judgment. We're bringing these up for awareness.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Gloria, because I think that's really an important distinction and it involves a lot of the work that we're involved with because you can have those movements, that anxiety that can be there, that can be really positive because it is an energy discharge that helps a person. And then it can be something that's just running automatically that you're not aware of, that could be giving you good information to hold yourself more gently.
Yeah.
So thank you. That's great that we can bring that distinction to light. So we talked about in the intro about this four-phase path from immobility to creative action. So can you tell us a little bit more about what that involves?
Yeah. Thanks. I really like this because in my work, I do guide clients through there's four distinctions, but interconnected phases, but it's not always linear. But the general flow, because it can look different for different people in different situations. The first thing you want to be able to do is to recognize. We begin by creating that awareness of the shutdown itself, like you were saying, to begin to notice it. This means you're tracking the body, noticing if there's dissociation or numbness, noticing if there's a more of a collapsed energy, and being able to name it without judgment is really key. The second is to resource, for them to be able to build safety through co-regulation and using their nervous system tools. So this might be the breath. It could be some sound, like I like sound meditations. It could
Mhm.
be movement or simply orienting to the environment with soft eyes. One of the things I've coached people to do is to be able to look around them and just acknowledge, like I'd say, lamp, picture, door, And when they start doing that, it starts to bring them back in a different way. And that's
Yeah.
and the third is release. So once they can have that felt sense of safety, we allow the body to complete the incomplete defense responses. And this goes into some of the somatics. So this could be trembling, it might be tears, it could be a sigh, or it could be a yawn. And that is recognizing the body as discharging, as you were referring to
Mhm.
before, that stored survival energy. So it's survival energy, something's been triggered within. And the fourth step is then to reclaim. So from here, you get to have that creativity and the sense of agency that returns to you. And this is where clients often they just feel this surge of inspiration, of clarity, or recognizing a grounded action that they can take that's no longer driven by that adrenaline. It's inspired by being in alignment with their true self. So we've talked before about how creativity is the natural outcome of regulation. I'd love to hear you talk about how you've seen this last phase, the reclaiming, show up in some of your clients' lives, Gail.
Yeah. Oh, it's actually almost bringing tears to my eyes as you said that, because the reclaiming piece, I think, is it can not necessarily be observed by us who are doing the
Mm,
healing work and doing those other phases, and it can start to happen, and you're not really recognizing it. And if you're
mm,
with someone else that is helping you along this journey,
mm,
and that pauses and goes, "Hey, wait a minute. Do you realize let's just acknowledge what's happened here." And in naming some of that with my clients,
mhm.
they all of a sudden go, "Oh my gosh, you're right." I mean, I've even had that experience. I've gone, "Oh my gosh, I think I've just realized I've been doing something that I've been working on changing and I actually changed it." So
Yeah, it's a
it
celebration.
does, it brings a lightness to your body.
Mm,
It brings more energy. It just helps like take like any kind of energy that you have around your head moves
Uh-huh.
down more into your body, into a groundedness that you've been talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, that was such a great question. So fun to answer. It's making me like feel it right now in just remembering some of those experiences with my clients. So yeah, thank
Yeah,
you.
and part of that I just saw happen too with you having the remembrance is there's a softening in the body,
Mm,
face, the shoulders can drop, and that's the body going into that neuroception of safety. Yeah,
yeah,
it's beautiful.
yeah, yeah. Thank you. So let's look at our last inquiry here about the body and just picking up on what you said
Mm.
there, a face softening, etc. So how do we get the body-based signals that are looking at, like
Yes.
stop pushing me, like stop. How is our body telling us to stop and that
Mm.
it needs to pause and discharge this energy that is not helpful for us any longer?
This is such an important question, Gail. The body always whispers before it screams. And some of the cues, the key ones that I've noticed, particularly on my own healing journey, and then I've seen it in witnessed it for others, is there can be this sudden fogginess or a loss
Yeah.
of clarity where I've actually felt like I'm in a fog bank and it's hard to discern or to see anything or to hear things. It can get foggy in your hearing as well. Another thing is that you could feel emotionally flat or just apathetic. And so it's kind of like a still face. And you
Hmm.
can see that in others. Maybe if you go into the bathroom, you can look in the mirror, you could recognize in yourself when you're just feeling off. And another very common one is that, again, the breath, the involuntary holding of it. All of a sudden you realize, oh, I've been holding my breath. Or
Yeah.
some people, they'll clench their jaws, and that can cause that TMJ too, but clenching the jaw. And or another one is that numbing out. And so that comes from, in my experience, a desire to isolate, that numb out. And that can be like, okay, I'm going to get on my screen, or I'm going
Hmm.
to go eat my favorite. I like potato chips or popcorn. Or you can become more focused on your work and just not be able to stop. And those are ways that we're really isolating ourselves because we need to numb out. There's something that's happening underneath. Um, it's like the emotional alarm system is just going underneath, and it's the system trying to soothe itself, but using these strategies that may not be so life-serving.
Yeah.
Or the other thing is there could be that inner sense of I should keep going, or I
Mhm.
should do this or that, and there's a tightness in the chest or the solar plexus with that. And so when these types of cues are present, it's really not the time to push. And that seems really counterintuitive, but it's really important to pause. And this is when I invite my clients to, if it's possible, let's go step outside, or they can place a hand on their heart and simply ask, what needs to be felt right now? And this often just that there will allow the body to have a softening or a spontaneous exhale.
Mhm.
And so, Gail, I know that you bring such wisdom to the body signals in your work. So, as we've started to tap into this, I know there's other cues. What are some of the ones that you look for when someone's system is asking for a pause, even if their mind hasn't caught up with
Yeah.
it yet?
Well, I think that still face is
Mm,
something um, that is, unless you're aware of it and being conscious to look for it,
hmm
it can just be glossed over so you don't notice it. Not, and I'm speaking from noticing it in others.
Oh, yeah.
Because it is a bit more challenging to start to notice it in ourselves. But if you get curious about looking at this in other people, you can begin to perhaps see it with young children are wonderful to be reading what's going on because they will show these types of signals, perhaps more readily than
hmm
adults do. And if we don't know about it, we can just assume everything's okay. So the still
hmm
face is one, but little subtle. micro expressions
Mhm.
of perhaps anger or
Mhm.
frustration with, the way the eyes crinkle with
Mhm.
some anger or the brow furrows
Mhm.
in looking at the other person. Uh, Sometimes you can see sort of the upper lip going up. That might be some indication of some disgust or contempt. I've seen that, a fair bit with, working with athletes, and when they're having a coach tell them what they want them to do,
Mhm.
and they're not wanting to do that, but they know they have to be a good girl and follow what the adult is telling them to do. And so it's very interesting when you start looking at these cues. So those are a
Mm.
few that I try to stay on top of noticing. And that breathing, when you're just seeing this
Mhm.
little sips of air happening
Mhm.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that really does have a ripple effect on the whole nervous system when it's not caught, and it can compound for people. So this is really important to begin to explore and to recognize. And the more that I've done this work and been willing to receive support and accompaniment, the more I can catch that within myself with
Mm.
compassion rather than judgment.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. So true. Thanks for reaffirming that, Gloria.
Yeah.
Yes. So, end of our session right now, but next week we're diving into something that very often gets put aside
Mm.
and is absolutely vital to wholeness. And that is looking at pleasure as a growth
Mm.
strategy, accessing pleasure. Wow. And so we'll be looking at reclaiming, okay, something that's might be kind of scary to hear, but your sexual and creative energy. And that can be a profound catalyst for healing,
Yeah.
your embodiment, and claiming our own leadership.
Yeah.
So that's going to be exciting, Gloria.
Yeah. And we will be going there with warmth and safety and truth. Because honestly, pleasure isn't a luxury, it is our birthright. And when we reconnect with it, we stop just surviving and truly start thriving. So I invite our listeners to be sure to follow or subscribe and share this with someone that you really care about. And if you're curious, we'd love for you to drop us a note and let us know what lit you up today in this episode. So until next time, take a breath, take a pause, and remember, your healing isn't, it is sacred. And your story is really powerful because your voice truly does matter. Thank you.